Okay, this is part 3 of prevent and reverse kidney disease. We'll start out by talking a little bit about the effect of the kidney to control pH. So the main thing the kidney does is excrete nitrogen, but the second most important thing it does is it controls acid-base balance, the pH in your cells, which means the amount of hydrogen ions floating around in your blood and your extracellular space. And it has to do that because if that varies too much, then your enzymes, your proteins would change shape and they wouldn't work effectively. What you need to know is that plant foods are good. They tend to be alkaline, meaning basic. Animal foods are bad. They tend to be quite acidic. Some of the grains are about in the middle, the bread, the rice, the pasta, the beans. Okay, but sometimes you'll hear all these ignoramuses tell you fish is a good food. Fish is a terrible food. It's not only loaded with mercury, loaded with saturated fat, it's also extremely acidic. Okay, pork, poultry, and cheese are terrible. They're very acidic. You don't want that. You're going to put this big burden on your kidneys of nitrogen, of inflammation, of toxins, of estrogenic chemicals, and acidity. Okay. Salt also has an acidic effect because the sodium chloride, the chloride's a anion, negatively charged ion in your blood, and when you eat it in large amounts, it'll displace some of the bicarbonate pH buffer ions in the blood, causing a low-grade metabolic acidosis, creating more work for your kidney. You don't want to do that. Okay, so what's the main cause of death in chronic kidney disease patients? It's heart attack. Okay, most of these kidney failure patients, they don't even make it to dialysis. They just die of a heart attack before then. All right. They usually have hypertension and diabetes, and all that stuff is plugging up their arteries in their heart, their brain, everywhere else. Does CKD increase the risk of blood clot? Oh yeah, they have a much increased risk of clotting. They have terrible looking arteries. I could be standing across the room and somebody could put up on the view box, let's say, a CAT scan of the brain, and I could say that patient probably has kidney failure. They could put up a CAT scan of the abdomen, I could say that patient probably has kidney failure. And how would I do it? Because I'd see all the arteries are calcified. With a typical dialysis patient, all the external carotid arteries are calcified all the way up and down their skull. In their abdomen, typically their splenic arteries just calcified all the way throughout. All their arteries are diffusely calcified, which is terrible. You don't want your arteries to be calcified at all. They're prothrombotic because they have elevated blood factor 7 and factor 8 and fibrinogen. And there's other reasons too. And their vascular smooth muscle cells can undergo like an osteoblastic transformation where they tend to form bone, calcium. They have terrible arteries. Okay. Oh, the next question is, here I'm promoting a plant food diet so strongly. And then, so the question is asked in the book, is Dr. Rogers some kind of animal rights person? No, I am not. I'm only interested in plant foods for health reasons. I actually think the majority of these so-called animal rights people are really, cow, and then the moon, and then the direction east, okay? They're full of crap. I think a lot of them want to get rid of animal food production to just further decrease the food supply, and then it'll be later they can starve all the Jesus Christu followers. It's an old trick. You see that in all the countries that go commie. Okay, let's continue with talking about kidney failure. I wish there were more family farms in the USA. I think they're a wonderful backup to the food supply, I don't want to eat that stuff because I want to optimize my health, but if I'd rather eat that than starve. I'd rather be a free man eating meat than I would be a slave eating plant foods. Okay, the next question that comes is, why are plants so good and other foods so bad? And the answer is because plant foods have all the good stuff. Low-fat plant foods have all the good stuff. Animal foods and processed foods have all the bad stuff. And processed foods are worse than animal foods, okay? So the next question, well, what is so good about low-fat whole plant foods? Well, they all got fiber, so you prevent leaky gut, you avoid that autoimmune stuff. Okay, that also slows down your blood glucose absorption, prevents all that prothrombotic leaky gut stuff like amyloid clotting, prevents brain inflammation. They got magnesium, a vasodilator. It's located in the center of chlorophyll. They got a lot of potassium, which unless you're in end-stage kidney failure, most patients can handle potassium well. It helps for vasodilation to run your sodium, potassium, plasma membrane, ATP pumps. Those are very valuable and help vasodilation in your arteries so you get good blood flow to your kidneys and they work well. Fruits and veggies are very alkaline. Starches are relatively neutral. Antioxidants like vitamin C. In end-stage kidney failure, starches are preferred. There'll be a little bit less potassium, okay? Antioxidants like vitamin C are abundant in plant foods. Plant nitrates are precursors to making nitric oxide. Most plants are all low in protein. The one big exception is beans. You also want to avoid nuts because they're too high in fat, and they can also be a little high in protein. All oils are bad. They're processed food. Phosphorus in plants tends to be bound to phytate, so it's not much absorbed. Whereas in processed foods and meats, it's much more absorbed, especially processed food. Okay, now why are animal foods and processed foods so bad? Well, first of all, they're high in fat, okay, and that's bad for atherosclerosis and hypertension. PUFAs have a bunch of other bad effects from lipid peroxidation. Animal foods are high in protein. Many processed foods are high in protein, which is rough on the kidneys. Almost all of them are high in sodium, vasoconstrictor. In 1929, the Kenyans had no hypertension. The Yanomama in the Intersalt study, no hypertension. Tarahumara, no hypertension. These populations, they eat a plant-based diet, they don't ever get hypertension. They don't virtually almost never get type 2 diabetes. Well, if you don't get hypertension and type 2 diabetes, that means you almost never get atherosclerosis. That means you're very, very, very unlikely to ever get kidney disease from the usual causes, diabetes and hypertension, okay? All the high-fat animal foods are high in advanced glycation end products, which are damaging to your health in many ways. Like I said, they're high in phosphorus that is absorbed. The animal foods are high in arachidonic acid, another type of omega-6 fat associated with increased inflammation. They're high in estrogenic chemicals, typically the animal foods, like the cow milk nowadays. They're pregnant when they make the milk. They've been engineered that way. Estrogenic chemicals tend to be fat storage hormones predisposed to obesity. Animal foods lead to increased TMAO, trimethylamine oxidase, which is atherogenic. Okay, high fructose corn syrup is common in processed foods. Those tend to elevate blood uric acid levels. Uric acid is prothrombotic. It's a vasoconstrictor, and they're predisposed to fatty liver. Okay, biomagnified pesticide accumulation. The animals eat the GMO food that's been sprayed typically with atrazine and glyphosate, and it accumulates in their bodies, and that's toxic when you eat the animal. Animal foods have increased risk of xenocellulitis, like the beef, for example. The heme iron is more absorbed when it comes from animal foods. Processed food will often have emulsifiers that increase the risk of leaky gut. And we talked about the metabolic acidosis from the acidity of the meat. So anyways, like I said, other than vitamin B12, all the good stuff's in plants, all the bad stuff's in animal foods. It's just the way it is. I didn't make the rules, it's just the way it is. Genesis 1:29, I put every plant on this earth to be food for you. So anyways, hope you found that helpful.